The pre-caged pre-workout, creatine hydrochloride. The re-caged post-workout, creatine hydrochloride. And caged muscles, standalone creatine supplement, CHCl capsules, creatine hydrochloride. What's the deal with caged muscle and creatine hydrochloride, and where's the creatine monohydrate?
Welcome to PricePlow.
What's up everyone, this is Mike Roberto, founder of PricePlow.com. And so over the last couple of months, we've done a lot of cool stuff, some of it sponsored, some of it not sponsored with Caged Muscle. They've had a spot on our homepage, so there is a business relationship, but here we're gonna geek out big time and talk about the new Caged Muscle Creaclear supplement. So we started this whole thing with an interview with Kris Gethin as they were getting ready to launch this bad boy right here, Creaclear. Now this is their creatine supplement that is their take on creatine monohydrate, and it's got some patents and some crazy technology behind it, and that's what we're going to get into today. So when we started off our whole shebang with Caged Muscle, we had a Skype interview with Kris Gethin, the man behind Caged Muscle. Huge fan. What's going on, Kris? And so what we learned is that there's certain people who, despite whatever the science says, there's certain people who just get GI discomfort from creatine monohydrate. It just doesn't work for some people, or it might work, but they're gonna get some bloating in the gut, or worse, just have to go to the bathroom a lot, all that non-fun stuff. So that's why Kris is a big time believer in selling the supplements that he uses that work for his body and that work for his blood tests. And he goes into that, and so guess what? Creatine monohydrate never been in the Caged Muscle family because of that. It just doesn't work for Kris, and that means it ain't working for the brand. In the meantime, everything they had was with creatine hydrochloride, but now there is a new way of getting a Caged Muscle and Kris Gethin approved way of getting creatine monohydrate in, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So everything that we learn here comes out of a patent from a company called Technologies. There's actually two patents. One of them's shown on the tub, but you can see that they have a few patents, and two of them have to do with creatine and getting it to suspend in water properly. Now we're going to start the timer here because we earlier posted a video, and we threw in some music as well. We posted a video stolen from Caged Muscle's website because we need to get on YouTube to embed into our own website, where Caged Muscle was showing creatine monohydrate versus this new Creaclear, mixing it in water and watching it rest for 3 minutes. The creatine monohydrate went to powder at the bottom because it does not absorb very well in water. It gets saturated too much. And the Creaclear stayed absolutely clear after 3 minutes. So I'm gonna do the same thing with some B-roll. And Brad, thank Brad for doing this. We're gonna throw in a box right here and start the timer right now. Boom. Okay, so Creaclear is based off of the patents for Technologies. This is one of the leaders in encapsulation, and that's exactly what they're doing here. This is a very, very interesting product because they're taking creatine monohydrate. It's a legit 5 grams of creatine monohydrate. You're gonna get each scoop of this, but then they're encapsulating it in a dairy protein. Now, they don't mention what kind of dairy protein, but if you dig into the patents, and then we have a whole blog post where I spent like all day just going through this thing because I kind of went down the rabbit hole, and I like this kind of stuff. So what they do recommend, and we have to assume that Caged Muscle is using, is a hydrolyzed whey protein, isolate protein. And so there's out of a 5.6 gram scoop, you're getting 5 grams of actual creatine monohydrate, which means there's a maximum of 0.6 grams of extra encapsulation technology. I think a lot of that's going to be the whey protein, hydrolyzed whey protein isolate, but there's also some other stuff that they're doing here in order to get it to form a kind of a lipid around the creatine molecule. Now, why would you want to do this? And this is where there may be a little bit of controversy, a little bit of discussion, but in general, what the patent shows is that if you take standard creatine monohydrate and put it in water, it is going to break down into the inactive form creatinine. And that's what your body is going to dispose of. And the creatinine is a big score for kidney health and all that. But over the course of time, you will eventually lose your creatine stores as it gets removed via creatinine. Well, it turns out that the creatine monohydrate, if it's in water long enough, and it depends on temperature, it depends on pH. If it's in water long enough, it can break down quite quickly. And we'll flash up some graphs here, but you're gonna see that according to this patent, and I'm not sure what the pH or the temperature was, so we don't know if they are kind of skewing things a little bit in their direction, but after 15 to 30 minutes, the creatine in water, all of the majority of it had turned into creatinine, which is not going to get you any gains from the creatine. Now, we're not going to talk about the benefits of the creatine here, but basically 3 to 5 grams a day gets you all sorts of power and strength and muscle building use and better water retention, for better or for worse, and all the benefits that go along with it. There's some cognitive benefits. It's a great, super well researched molecule and one of the most researched supplements out there. We're not talking about that. We're going to talk about the encapsulation technology behind Creaclear. And what they're saying is that if you compare the creatine monohydrate degrading to creatinine in water, it barely, the Creaclear with the encapsulation technology, barely converts to creatinine, and this enables them to do some really cool things, such as, first off, keep it clear. It doesn't get saturated in the water. The protein actually protects it, and the protein, as you've seen like with your whey shakes and stuff, it mixes pretty good with water, and so you have a clear fluid here, and that's what we're going to be showing off to the side. Kaged Muscle did their own test, but we're going to do our own as well. But on top of that, you can leave it in liquids longer. And this is one of the things that I didn't realize. And it turns out Brian Rand told me this, and I might want to confirm from other people, because Brian Rand is the formulator at Kaged Muscle. So Kris Gethin brings the muscle, Brian Rand brings a lot of the brains. Not that Kris doesn't have the brains, but Brian Rand's got like the crazy brains. And so he told me that most, depending on the temperature, depending on the pH, the creatine is going to break down if you leave it in your shaker cup too long with water. And most pre-workouts have a pH of about 3. That's around the same as a soda or a juice. And so in these more acidic environments, they are going to be, it's going to break down a little bit quicker. And once it breaks down to creatinine, you're not going to get as many gains. So I was looking for a study that was backing this up, and I really didn't find one, but it might be worth digging a little bit deeper so we can kind of prove that. But in general, it seems that the science is that if you are drinking, if nothing else, you didn't learn anything else from this video, when you put your creatine in water, drink it fast. That's what we're starting to learn here, and that's one thing I wish I would have known earlier. So creatine hydrochloride, they're binding the creatine to hydrochloric acid, which makes the creatine salt. And in the case of Creaclear, they're just simply adding some extra basic ingredients to add to the base so the pH gets changed. This is completely different because they are actually encapsulating it. And so Anabiotechnology sets a patent. Now, the way they do it is a little bit above my head. It might take some chemical engineering or material science engineering type of background to understand it. But basically, they're saying that hydrolyzed whey suspension is used within a polymerized hydrolyzed whey protein matrix and a carboxylic ester. So they generate droplets in a suspension. And then they're curing the droplets with some extra stuff, and then that ester reacts with the curing solution to create a salt that then turns the whey protein into this awesome like encapsulation thing that protects the actual creatine molecule. So they're doing little droplets, and I don't know how much they're doing at a time and how big these encapsulations are, but at the end of the day, it mixes clear in water, and the data is showing that it doesn't break down as quickly in water. In fact, they're saying that it stays stable in water for 28 days, which is impressive, and the technology might be able to be used in a bottle type drink, which right now Kaged Muscle has the exclusive on this technology and these patents, I believe, at least in the world of sports nutrition. But they don't have any RTD drinks. So it'd be interesting to see if they actually find a way to make a shelf-stable creatine drink that actually has a legitimate dose of creatine. Now, there is hydrolyzed whey protein isolate surrounding this, and it's only going to be it's going to be less than 0.6 grams per scoop of 5 grams of creatine. I personally think that given that it's hydrolyzed whey isolate, even if you're very lactose sensitive, I am confident that you're going to be able to have this unless you're like extraordinarily allergic. But even for lactose sensitive people, I think it's going to be okay because there's not that much dairy protein. It's going to be less than 0.6 grams. It's already hydrolyzed. But the whole point is that this is making for a protection vehicle to get to where the creatine needs to go before your body breaks it down too soon, or before your saliva even breaks it down, or before the water in your shaker cup even breaks it down. So the creatine stays stable in this protein protected encapsulation, and then makes it down esophagus. And then the whole point is to get it to the small intestine where it can then bust open and then be absorbed and get directly to the muscle. If it's broken down too early, if you break it down to creatinine in your mouth, for instance, then you're not going to be able to get as many potential gains with the creatine, at least until you reach saturation with your creatine. And we'll get into the dosing and saturation story later on. So we have some really cool pictures kind of showing this breakdown process over the course of 3 minutes. that once it gets into your body. And we'll get them popped up over here. I'm holding some pictures right now, but it starts off as this like nice, looking smooth protein molecule. And then after a few minutes, your small intestine busts it out, and then boom, you have this creatine molecule ready to come out and play and everything. And you want that to happen at the right time. And so that's the whole theory behind this. Now, a lot of times these advanced creatines are like crazy expensive. We're not sure if it's worth it. And honestly, the prices, even at initial launch, the prices are not that expensive on this product. I have mixed it before, and it seemed to do exactly what they said it did. It dispersed really well, but we have that video that we just popped up there, so we'll be showing that as well. Now, the last thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to do a dry scoop just to see if there's any protein-y taste to it. Why not? But the final thing is talking about dosing. So typically, we know that creatine. So when it started off, there's all the best research was showing that you would have this loading phase, basically around 20 grams per day. It depends on your body weight. Let's just say 20 grams per day for about 5 or so days. And it was debated because yes, all the studies showed that did work. But at that point, that was back in like the 2000s, way early 2000s, that's when creatine was crazy expensive. So was it kind of maybe a tool to be used to sell a little bit more creatine? Maybe, but at the same time, all the research shows that loading does work. You get to saturation faster if you load, and creatine is about saturation. Once you're at saturation, 3 to 5 grams per day, basically it seems that you urinate about 2 grams of creatinine per day or so. So 2, 3, 4, 5 grams per day if you're a big guy. Will keep you at saturation levels. Now, what Kaged Muscle says with this is that you can load if you want to get there in a hurry, but if you don't, or you're on a budget, you can just go 3 to 5 grams a day, and you'll eventually get to saturation. Now, I believe that if this technology actually works, you should be able to do 3 grams a day because hey, if the absorption is higher, if the bioavailability is higher, then why would you need to go 5 grams? But if you're a regular sized guy like myself, 185 pounds, 3 grams a day should probably be fine. So at the same time, a lot of the loading kind of went away because people are like, hey, I can take my time to get to saturation, no big deal. But then creatine started getting so crazy cheap. I started thinking, if all these studies are using 20 grams a day to load for a week, and right now creatine is so cheap, why not load? You might as well. I mean, what are you going to lose an extra $1? A lot of people want to get there in a hurry. Why not? Especially if you have no GI problems. But if you do have GI problems, you're definitely not loading. So anyway, the choice is up to you. I think it really comes down to budget and if you're in a hurry to get to saturation. But if you want to go all in and see if this really works for you, throw down 20 grams in a day. It'll cost you a little bit more, but it's still not crazy expensive, and you'll be able to see how well this works. Now it's time for the fun part. Let's do a dry scoop here and see if I have any protein taste. Now I'll be honest, I did another review earlier today where I dry scooped another creatine, and that was just a plain monohydrate. So I kind of have the idea in my mouth. We'll do. So I kind of have the idea already in my mind of what it was like, and it's pretty tasteless. Depends on how well they really micronize it, is how those other creatine monohydrates really work in your mouth basically. And so it looks pretty normal. Maybe a little bit more. It actually looks like a little bit whiter, if that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe it's the stimulants I took earlier. All right, here we go. Okay, this might be disgusting to everyone. It made a glob. This is... It actually tastes really good. This tastes... It is a bit proteiny, and I know I just did a flavored amino acid with it. Should have done water. But before I did that flavored amino acid, there was a sweet, proteiny taste. Whey does have a little bit of sweetness to it, and there's a proteiny taste to it. This is actually going to alter the flavor of your products that you're mixing with a little bit, and for the better. So that's interesting. Hey, we know when you're mixing with whey protein hydrolyzed, and I believe that's it. Other ingredients are milk protein is all it says here. Then you're gonna get a boost in flavor. That's kind of funny, but anyway, I need to finish this thing. Okay, so I don't recommend dry scooping this. It tastes fine. It's like I'm chewing gum almost. This is really interesting. This is not normal creatine. I didn't expect this at all. It's gummy. It's like the more I work with it, the more it fights back at me. It mixes perfect in water, but in saliva, I think maybe I started the process. I have no idea what just happened there. These are my teeth. That's funny. Okay, that stuff tastes awesome. This is way more interesting than I thought it would be. So anyway, that's kind of what I wrote about in the blog post. I'm going through this patent. I'm looking at it, and they're showing all this interesting information, and then they're showing these pictures of the creatine finally getting broken down into the small intestine so it can get to where it needs to go. And they're showing these graphs, and I'm like, if anything, I think Kaged Muscle is kind of underselling this, and the price isn't too bad. So overall, there's a specific demographic. Most people are going to be totally fine with creatine monohydrate, but if you're the kind of person like me who leaves you're on the slow sipper special on your pre-workout, and you put your creatine in there, and you have this acidic pre-workout, and you're not drinking it fast enough, and you don't want to chug, then you might want to look into this. If you're the kind of person who's sick of creatine hydrochloride and you want to have something different, and creatine monohydrate does give you that GI discomfort, then you might want to give this a shot. But if you're like just, Joe Blow who's on the budget, and you're able to take your creatine capsules, or you just slam a scoop of creatine and really quickly, and you have no problems whatsoever, this might not be for you. But this is one of the more damned interesting creatines I've ever seen, and I think Kaged Muscle, they do have a video on their channel where the scientists at Anabiotechnologies is talking about it. But I honestly I think they're underplaying it. I think this is more interesting. If anything else, it's the most interesting thing to happen in creatine for a while. And I'm not saying it's the end all be all. I'm saying some of this data is worth looking into. And for certain demographics, this might be at least worth a shot, because there are a few of us who don't like creatine mono, don't like creatine hydrochloride, or we are just letting our stuff sit around in water and acidic water too long. And guess what? There goes a lot of your money, at least a little bit of money, because it is cheap. So you can load up, do 5 to 10 grams, or you can maybe just stick with 2 to 3 grams of this stuff per day. Anyway, this is Mike Roberto with PricePlow. I encourage you to read the blog post. We're going to show up some video. We're going to show up some images up here. I think this is crazy interesting. It might not be the biggest thing in the world, but Kaged Muscle has exclusives on this patent. And this is not the only ingredient that they're talking about this patent. So I have a feeling there's going to be some other stuff, maybe beta-alanine, maybe some other amino acids that we need to protect until it gets to the small intestine so we can get that into our bloodstream unaltered. And hey, take the 0.6 grams of protein while we're at it, because it's kind of tasty. Anyway, Mike Roberto with PricePlow. Thanks for watching. I'm kind of excited about this stuff. I like reading these patents, and this one was pretty interesting. Subscribe to the channel if you want to geek out a little bit more, because we have more coming, and hopefully Kaged Muscle does some more stuff with this, because if they got the exclusive on this ingredient, I want them to take advantage of it. Put some beta-alanine in there, put some citrulline in there, do some cool stuff. We'll see you next time. Maybe some L-arginine too.
Welcome to PricePlow.